In the beginning of the film we see, Daniel is an adolescent who moves from New Jersey to Los Angeles after his mother, Lucille, obtains a new job. When a faucet in their new apartment breaks, Daniel goes to see Mr. Miyagi, the maintenance guy, who is attempting to capture a fly with chopsticks. He promises him that he will attend to it as soon as possible. When a new acquaintance invites Daniel to a beach party where he encounters Lee Mills, Johnny Lawrence, and his buddies Tommy and Bobby Brown, Johnny clashes with Allie, his ex-girlfriend. He breaks her stereo, and Daniel confronts him. Johnny is skilled in martial arts and knocks up Daniel, leaving him with a black eye. He wears sunglasses to school to conceal his eye damage from Lucille. When this fails, he lies and claims to have fallen off bicycle when Bobby Slides assaults Daniel during the soccer tryouts at his new school. Daniel spurs Daniel to hit him and delivers a punch on his face, which gets him booted from the field. Although Daniel has some basic martial arts knowledge from self-defense lessons, he thinks he needs a refresher while exercising, so Miyagi pops in to help. Frank, he also wonders how Daniel might fall off a bicycle without injuring his arm. When Daniel joins Lucille for lunch, he spots a karate school across the street and goes to investigate. The dojo is administered like a boot camp by the dojo sensei, ex-Special Forces Vietnam veteran John Kreese. When he sees Johnny, he flees. He has instilled in his students a draconian ideology, the way of the fist, which promotes brutality, violence, and no compassion. Johnny and his buddies sideswipe Daniel on their motorcycles while traveling home at night, forcing him to slide down a hill. Daniel is just slightly harmed, but he is terrified and embarrassed when Lucille sees him dumping his destroyed bike into a garbage when he returns home. Daniel informs his mother that he wants to return to New Jersey since the relocation has disturbed his life. Miyagi enters from his workshop as they walk away, having overheard their talk. Daniel recovers his bike from the garbage the next day and repairs it. He visits Miyagi's workshop and discovers that Miyagi restored it for him. Allie and Daniel are both decorating the school gymnasium for a Halloween dance. When Miyagi inquires about Daniel's absence, he declines. Daniel claims he lacks a costume. Miyagi also notices Daniel's lack of self-confidence and creates a costume for him. Daniel comes at school and meets Allie, briefly dancing with her. Daniel walks to the restroom to clean himself after a prankster at the dance smashes a raw egg on his head. Johnny is costumed as a skeleton and rolling marijuana joints in one of the stalls. Mr. Daniel Riggs. Frank has a hose dangling over Johnny and is turning on the water. Johnny rushes out of the restroom in pursuit of Dan. Now I'll temporarily stall them by tripping Johnny and dumping all the other Cobra kites on the ground. Daniel runs out of school and almost jumps over the fence at his house. When the kites capture him and start beating him while ranting about how enemies deserve no mercy, Johnny prepares for a terrible kick but misses when Miyagi comes and pulls Daniel out of the path. Miyagi effortlessly overcomes Kais, leaving them all screaming in anguish on the ground. Daniel is taken by Miyagi. He intends to go to his workshop. Daniel is awestruck by Miyagi's karate skills and asks Miyagi to teach him. Miyagi emphasizes that the Chilean situation is not their fault, but must be. Miyagi advises that Daniel speak with their teacher. Daniel declines, fearing that he would be beaten again. Miyagi is hesitant to get involved, but decides to instruct Daniel and accompany him to Cobra Kai to meet with Chris. The next day at the Cobra Kai dojo, Daniel and Miyagi observe Chris lessons as pupils that an opponent is also an enemy and deserves no compassion. Chris breaks apart his class to confront the guests. Chris mocks Miyagi's suggestion that his pupils leave Daniel alone and demands Daniel to fight Johnny. Miyagi wants the chances to be more equitable for Daniel, so he recommends they meet in the All Valley Karate Tournament a few weeks later. Chris likes the challenge and concurs. Chris promises to stop his pupils from bothering Daniel, but warns that if Daniel back down, the harassment will continue, and Miyagi will be included. Miyagi brings Daniel to his house to begin his instruction, and there are a dozen vintage American vehicles in front of the house. Daniel is told by Miyagi that he will instruct him and that his student would not question him. When Daniel accepts, Miyagi provides him a sponge and instructs him to wash and wax all of the cars. Miyagi's instructions are quite detailed. Daniel will just use the sponge and waxed garments by making large circles with his hands and arms. He'll also take deep breaths in through his nose and out through his mouth. In the weeks to come, Miyagi assigns Daniel more duties that need comparable expertise, such as polishing a boardwalk that circles Miyagi's property, painting his house, and staining the fence that surrounds his land. Daniel's dissatisfaction builds with each new job due to his apparent lack of karate skill and Miyagi's limited recognition of his performance. Daniel vents his dissatisfaction to his teacher one night after finishing the painting of Miyagi's house. Miyagi instructs Daniel to demonstrate how he cleaned and polished his clothes. The automobiles. When Daniel complains that his shoulder hurts too much, Miyagi applies acupressure to relieve the strain and instructs Daniel to demonstrate the motions he's been doing to accomplish the chores. Daniel rapidly understands that the jobs included defensive actions, muscle tone workouts, reflexes, and good breathing methods. Following a few minutes of practice, and Miyagi quickly unleashes numerous punches and kicks at Daniel, which he effortlessly blocks. Miyagi also demonstrates how to bow to his opponent, ensuring that Daniel looks his opponent in the eyes for both defense and communication. When Daniel goes on his first real date with Ali, he discovers that her parents are incredibly rich and reside in Beverly Hills. When he arrives at Aldi's house, driven by Lucille, Daniel is terrified and ashamed, especially when Lucille's automobile refuses to start and they have to push start it. The date with Ali, on the other hand, is pleasurable, and his discomfort fades. In the weeks that followed, Miyagi had Daniel practice his defensive methods and physical balance by standing on the beach and trying to stay upright against the ocean's big, powerful waves. When Daniel emerges from the ocean, he notices Miyagi standing on a post farther down the beach. Miyagi is working on a technique in which he elevates his arms in one leg while kicking with the other. When Daniel wonders what the move is, Miyagi refers to it as the crane technique, claiming that if done correctly, an opponent will have no defense. Ali invites Daniel out on another date. Daniel visits Ali's parents' country club and spots Ali dancing with Johnny. When Johnny notices Daniel, he makes Ali kiss him. Daniel, embarrassed, walks out the door and collides with a waiter, who pours a plate of food on him, prompting laughs from everyone who witnesses the tragedy. Ali, enraged, hits Johnny and flees, which Daniel does not witness. Daniel discovers him intoxicated and dressed in an army sergeant's outfit later that night at Miyagi's house. Miyagi gives Daniel a photograph of his late wife and drinks a toast with him. Miyagi falls asleep in his bed after a few minutes, and Daniel covers him with a blanket. Daniel discovers an army paperwork claiming that Miyagi's wife and kids perished during the earth at the Manzanar Japanese-American relocation camp in California. Daniel also learns that Miyagi is a military hero who received the Congressional Medal of Honor before abandoning Daniel bows to his crew. As time passes, Daniel continues to work out, frequently alone. At the beach, he also practices Miyagi's train kick. Miyagi also teaches Daniel how to punch, sharply reprimanding him when he starts acting silly. Daniel's 16th birthday arrives, and he celebrates with cake and ice cream with Miyagi. He also passed his driver's exam. Miyagi presents Daniel with a Japanese kimono that features an embroidered bonsai tree sewed into the back. Miyagi's other present is a yellow 1948 Ford Super Deluxe that he had Daniel wash and polish. He instructs Daniel to go out and find balance in his life by understanding he has the confidence to pursue his connection with Lee. Daniel travels to a nearby hangout and approaches Lee with the intention of confronting her about kissing Johnny. She mainly ignores him until Ali's friend Susan tells her that Johnny kissed her merely to embarrass Daniel, and that Ali injured her wrist striking Johnny in retaliation. Daniel apologizes to Ali, and she accepts his apology. He drives her about in his new automobile. On tournament day, Ali and Lucille join him at the registration counter. The official inquires as to Daniel's rank in the martial arts. Miyagi informs the official that Daniel is a black belt and grabs his belt from his bag. Daniel is challenged by some cobra while sitting behind the desk, delivering it to Ali in the locker room while dressing. They are sent out from the east, commanded by Dutch and the referee. Daniel defeats his first opponent in the tournament ring. He keeps moving forward, much to his amazement. Daniel is up against several in the latter rounds. The Cobras. Kais is upset when Daniel overcomes Tommy and the Dutch priest tells Bobby to perform an illegal kick to intentionally hurt Daniel's knee, knocking him out of the tournament. Bobby complies, badly wounding Daniel and disqualifying himself in the process. Daniel is led to the locker room, where a physician informs him that he will not be able to compete. Daniel is distraught, but Ali, Lucille, and Miyagi all remind him that he proved his point and that more fighting isn't necessary. However, when both ladies had departed, Daniel requested that Miyagi employ acupressure to repair his knee, just as he had done for his shoulder during training. Miyagi, on the other hand, first reiterates Lucille's remarks that Daniel has nothing more to prove. Daniel argues that if he thinks his tormentors have gotten the best of him, he will never be able to attain life balance. Miyagi agrees and heals Daniel's leg half. Daniel enters the ring just as Johnny is going to be declared the winner by default, despite just requiring 3 contact points to win both square off and after numerous suspenseful rounds. The game is tied at 2 each. Daniel attempts a high kick, which is intercepted by Johnny, who lands an elbow into Daniel's damaged knee on orders from the crease. Despite his suffering, he continues to compete in the last round. He assumes the crane technique position and waits for Johnny to make the move with an appreciative expression for Miyagi. Move Daniel kicks out with his leg and connects with Johnny's chin, gaining the 3rd point and winning the match atop the shoulders of the other participants. Johnny congratulates him and presents the championship trophy to him. Daniel rejoices in his victory and notices Miyagi almost smiling. The end.